All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
And today's guest is stuntman, stunt coordinator, and second unit director Eric Linden. He's known for his stunt work on some of the biggest blockbuster films and TV shows around, such as Black Adam, The Punisher, The Suicide Squad, and Red Notice. And in this interview, we discuss stunt work, how you should build a body of work to attract opportunities, how to level up your skills, overcoming the fear for when you need to do things like jumping out of windows or setting yourself on fire, his advice for those who want to enter the industry, creativity and why it's so important, and so much more. Please note that this was recorded while Eric was travelling, and there are a couple of places when the audio goes slightly, but hopefully these are few and far between now after some editing. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an absolute honour to have you. Now, you've been in some amazing films and TV shows, but for people who don't know the magic you do on the screen, could you just give a quick introduction and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Eric Linden. I am a stuntman, stunt coordinator, and second unit director. Oftentimes somebody thinks you might be one thing, and then when you become a stunt coordinator or a second unit director, you quit being something else. And that's kind of the nature of stunts, is to, you could be stunt coordinating something huge, and then the next week turn around and just be a guy who jumps out of a car and gets shot. The stunt world, you become a jack of all trades, if you will.
I mean, you've certainly done a lot in the industry, and you've been on a lot of sort of big blockbusters. You've been on TV shows. You've been a stuntman and a double for a lot of amazing people. But you have quite an unusual sort of upbringing. You went to a few boring jobs, to a midlife crisis, to a stuntman. It's not the usual, it's not the usual career path to follow, shall we say. Can you explain a little bit how you broke into the arts? What was your your motivations towards stuntmen? Because I love the story how you just decided to give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and you guys probably aren't as familiar being, overseas, but it's a very country-ish type of town, Midwest. People always kind of graduate high school. They may or may not go to college. They get a job, and then you're supposed to get married and have kids. And it's kind of very formula in that way. So doing something like going to Hollywood, for example, or becoming an astronaut or something like extreme like that, it doesn't seem like that is possible for somebody that grows up in the Midwest. It just doesn't seem attainable. So that never really crossed my mind, although I'd been a fan of films and was always interested in how they did the behind the scenes, and specifically the action. Was a huge action movie fan my whole life. But I kind of was just doing the cookie cutter lifestyle as someone in their 20s. And it just always kind of was wearing on me. And at some point, I just realized I was in the job that I graduated for, and I started realizing I wasn't happy with my life. This story could go on and on and on, but I'll try to sum it up. So at some point, I kind of had that quarter life crisis and was really, really unhappy, and was talking to a couple of friends that I would confide in. And, they said, hey, man, you get to live one life. You should do whatever it is that makes you happy, right? And they weren't even specifically telling me to do stunts. But then somebody kind of probed me and was like, hey, if you could pick anything in the world, professional baseball player? Would you want to be an archaeologist, or like pick anything? What would you want to do that would truly make you happy? And, I really sat there for, a good 30 minutes and just was like, man, I never really thought about it like that before. And I remember we were emailing, and I emailed back and said, I want to be a stuntman if I could just do anything. And I remember the email came back. It was just, all it said was, you can do it. And I was like, and I just went to lunch. I'm like, this is absurd. And then pretty soon the emails kind of kept firing in from this guy, and he was really good at research and stuff like that. And it started showing me a pathway how to get into stunts. And all of a sudden, this thing that seemed like was behind lock and key started to become like there was a pathway to go. Although the pathway was very long, it was like I knew a direction to start walking. And that's what started it. And I started looking into how to become in the Screen Actors Guild and what type of skills I would need. And I started knocking them off one at a time.
Because that's the good thing about the arts, being in stuntman and being in film, that is you can actually take on all these different jobs. You can portray these in the films and the TV shows. Usually you're falling down the stairs, you're getting a bottle broken over your head at the time, but it gives you that kind of, you can play these different characters, so it keeps it fresh, I suppose. But can you tell me a little bit about, your sort of first stunt? Can you remember, that very first time you're on set?
Well, there's a lot of different, kind of quote unquote, what is my first stunt? But the very, very first thing I ever did was on a student film, and my first experience on set at all. And that was getting the bottle broken over on my head. Extremely nervous. I didn't feel like I should be there. I felt like an outsider. And, we just kind of rehearsed it, and I pretty much was doing the fake it until you make it type of thing. And it seemed very big and glamorous, although now I know it was really nothing. But yeah, the first thing I did was get a bottle broken on my head, was quote unquote first stunt. But the first real stunt that I did where I was paid and doing stuff in Hollywood was, I had to run between these two cars, and I was running away from the cops, right? And one of the leads, which was a woman, needed to come around the corner and blindside me and do a clothesline. She swings her arm out and clotheslines me, and I fly up in the air and land on my back. So that was the very first stunt that was a real stunt that I ever did. And I was super nervous, came in and did it, and director was like, that was amazing, right? And the stunt coordinator knew I was new, and I think he was trying to kind of put me through the paces a bit. And he was like, oh, no, we didn't get it. Let's do it again. So I do it again. And he proceeded to make me do it 7 times. And I'm just flying through the air and landing on my back on concrete. And, I after that day was over and they said, good job. And I wrapped and I walked to my car. I was pretty beat up. And I just thought to myself, holy crap, what have I done? Do I really want to do this? And, you toughen up and you rub some whiskey on it and kept going for it.
Now, I read somewhere, and I don't know if you want me to talk about this or not, but you were wanting to be a makeup artist originally when you wanted to sort of break into the arts. Was that still the case back then? Were you just sort of seen, or during your first sort of stunts, were you just seeing how you liked it, or was there something?
Yeah, you really did your research. I haven't really told that story too much. Like I said, I was really interested in behind the scenes type of stuff. And, I was watching, I don't know how old you are, but, the Michael Jackson came out with Thriller. And
oh yeah.
I think I was 6 maybe, and was a big fan of Michael Jackson, that type of stuff, Beat It and all that. And so I watched, Thriller. I remember back then the music video he was so huge, it debuted on national TV. because there wasn't MTV or anything like that. So I believe it came on at 9:00, and they played it like, after a show, it was like debuting Michael Jackson, and they had like a half-hour special that happened after the music video. So I watched that, and it like scared me half to death, right? Because I was so young, and thought, oh my God, like my hero is turning into a werewolf, and it like my dad was like holding me, and I was scared. But then after that, they started showing all the behind the scenes of how they did the makeup and how they made him turn into a werewolf and turn into a zombie. And then it all became very not scary, right? And I was like, I want to do special effects when I get older. Like I was like, I'm in, I want to do that. But then, like as the years go on, once again, it doesn't seem like that's something for a kid from the Midwest.
Because that was something I really liked about your YouTube channel. Like you see these stunts on films and you think, oh, this is amazing. And then when you actually watch some of the behind the scenes stuff and, like when the director cuts and then you sort of just jump up after jumping out of a car, or, like all these, like getting set on fire, and you just kind of walk it off like it's nothing. You see how it's all set up and the safety precautions, and it looks amazing. And I love the insight you give behind the scenes. But when you were younger, what sort of films were you watching? Were there kind of any particular stunt people or actors doing particular stunts that kind of made you go, I want to inspire that? Because when I was younger, I used to love watching films and think how I would have done it differently, or imagine myself in the role and stuff, Were you like that when you were younger?
Yeah, well, yes, to some extent. When I was younger, I grew up in the 80s. So I was, and my dad, some parents wouldn't let you get away with that now, but he was letting me watch stuff like Rambo, Commando, these like pretty hardcore action movies where the characters are larger than life, and they all have like these huge muscles, and they're killing like hundreds of people, and but he would sit with me and make sure I knew that was fake. And you can't really do that. And it's just a movie. And I was all about the hero aspect of it. It wasn't the fact that people were killing people, right? But, I watched that. Tron was a really big one for me that I watched a lot of times, which is an action movie in a completely different sense, right? And then another one that still affects my life to this day is Star Wars. And so those were the type of things when I'm out on the playground and people are swinging on a rope or whatever. In my mind, I was Luke Skywalker with Princess Leia swinging across the gap. Like that was just, I don't know. It wasn't something that someone told me to do. It was just something that I did. So I was always like imagining myself in different scenarios and acting it out and stuff like that, just because I was an imaginative. But then as time went on, I started to watch movies more closely and pay attention to story and stuff like that. But honestly, I wasn't educated enough to really pick the thing apart because I hadn't been on set. So it wasn't until really I got into the industry that I started analyzing shots and wondering how they did that and how I would do it. I stayed on this shot longer, or I would have cut. Like that all kind of came once I was in Hollywood and really started understanding the craft.
I mean, that's the beauty of films, isn't it? Is it allows you to go into that world, and a lot of us don't even need to see behind the scenes. We just think how amazing it is, and it's escapism. But for me, I think it shows a sort of creative mind. There's a lot of people who, it becomes part of the world. They can imagine themselves doing that. And then you went and did the logical thing. You got into the industry. But could you tell us a little bit about how the sort of criteria for being a stuntman? Because I interviewed a guy, Bobby Hunton, who's the stunt double for Chris Hemsworth. And he was saying in the UK, there's 12 disciplines and you have to master 6. Is that similar to the US setup?
Yeah, I really admire the way they do stuff over there, because they end up getting very quality stunt people because they have like a hierarchy and like almost a way of certifying you that you know what you're doing and you belong there. honest to God, in the United States, it's not like that at all. Once you become part of the union, which is the Screen Actors Guild, kind of bluntly, any idiot can say that they're a stuntman. Now, that doesn't mean anybody's going to hire you, but you can start going for stunts with knowing absolutely nothing. And you'll see it from time to time, somebody that just has absolutely no talent whatsoever. They just may have a certain look, like maybe they're really tall or maybe they're really short. And they just kind of got into it, not because of talent, but by circumstance. And they make good money, so they keep trying to do it, right? Now, there's tons of guys that are very skilled in many different things and really work at their craft. But there is not this system of like checks and balances to make sure that you know what you're doing. And a lot of times, to make sure people are on set that do know what they're doing, it comes down to the stunt coordinator and who he hires. And that also boils down to personal relationships. Like, he needs to know you, have met you, see what you can do. They won't put you in a really complex spot right off the jump. They may give you something like, quote unquote, an easy task, maybe running away from something or something fairly simple. And then they get to know you and they can talk to you and see how you are on set, how you portray yourself, and then get to learn a little bit more about your skills. And obviously having a good stunt reel helps them understand what you're able to do.
Would there be like a set list of skills, like basic skills you think somebody wanting to get into acting or like stunt work should go into? You know, I mean, I've seen people mention MMA, the gymnastics, maybe an acting class. You know, is there set things that you would say to somebody, you should focus on this? Or did you find your path was helped because of the skills you learned at the start?
Well, I really pieced everything together myself. I think it's probably easier for me to just explain what I did. And I wrestled in high school, and I was very good. I wasn't the best, but I was very good at that. And when I got out of high school, I kept trying to have this urge to compete. So I started learning different martial arts. Like, I took Kung Fu, did that for a few months and got bored with it. Then I tried Jiu-Jitsu, and then I tried Kung Fu, Aikido, Taekwondo. Like, I was kind of bouncing around trying to find like a discipline that I really wanted to stick with. And then I started boxing, and I really like fell in love with that. And that's when I started to pursue stunts. Now this day and age, MMA is going to teach you some kicking, some ground game, how to roll, how to save yourself when you fall, and good boxing skills. So I think that that's actually a great place to start in the modern era. But you also still need to piece some things together. Like, you might need to get into the gymnastics gym. And if you have no skills whatsoever, you might need to take a gymnastics class. The more skills that you can kind of string together, the more valuable you're going to be as a stunt person. But say you can fight, but you can't like flip. That doesn't mean you can't do stunts. Like, you may just be somebody who fights. There's a lot of people that get in the industry that have like a motocross background. So they're very good on bikes, and then they end up kind of going into driving cars. And that's really where their niche is. And, they may not do the fight scenes. So being well-rounded and having as many skills as possible is extremely valuable. But the kind of basics is knowing how to fall, having some sort of acrobatic ability, and then having some sort of martial arts background.
I mean, you do have like such a wide range of skills. I mean, you've been in some of my favorite things, like the Punisher, for example. And your work in that was incredible.
Thank you.
And then, I was watching the 300 Rise of an Empire, and you're in that, and I was like, I didn't even notice that. It's you blend in seamlessly into it, and you do an amazing work. But how have you managed to bring up your skills to that level? How do you juggle keeping on top of them and developing them? I mean, do you have a preferred way of learning skills? Is there a way that you practice this offset when you're on your downtime?
Yeah, before 300 Rise of an Empire, I mean, I was a huge fan of 300, and, no one knew that they were going to do a sequel. But the Pirates movies had come out, and there's a lot of sword fighting in that. And I thought, man, the next time there's a sword movie that comes around, I want to be ready for it. And I had some sword fighting skills that I just learned from a buddy, but what
as you do.
Yeah, it was very, very basic. I wasn't good at all. But what I did is I bought some swords, some wooden swords online, from Amazon. It was $50 or something like that. And, I think I got 4 swords. And, me and a friend of mine who was getting into stunts as well, we would go and work out at the gym together. And then after we were done working out, we'd go into the aerobics room and get the swords out. And I was basically forcing him to be my partner so I could practice my sword skills and timing and clacking them together and making sure my distance was correct and I wasn't going to hit him in the face. And I just did all that on my own, from learning very, very basic stuff. And we sword fought probably 3-4 times a week, for over a year. And we just did it for fun, right? Like, it was part of training, but I also I thought it was fun. And, that kind of goes back to like the lightsaber type of stuff. Well, then lo and behold, an audition comes up for 300 Rise of an Empire. And I was like, holy shit, like, I am ready for this. And, everybody heard about the audition and they all tried to brush up on their sword skills like 2 days before the audition. Well, I'd been training this for over a year. So I just walked into the audition and nailed it. Like, where you saw other people kind of fumbling around, and I was dialed. So I ended up getting that job. First day I come in to start practicing, and they're running us through like the basic skills that they want us to be able to do, and use a sword and a shield. And I realized very, very quickly that I was the worst one in the entire room, and that this team of absolute gangsters were so much better than I was. But I was good enough to just be on the team, although being the worst one on the team, right? So we spent 3 months training for that movie, and I took it very, very seriously, because I wanted to feel like I belonged with this group. And, you're essentially being paid to train for a movie. And that's what we did. We were learning choreography, but at the same time, we were training our skills to make sure that our strikes were straight and that our body position was correct. Like, I mean, they were so specific that, like, they didn't want your knee in the wrong place. Like, the silhouette of your body needed to, like, kind of look perfect, right? Because we're standing there in our underwear, essentially. And being very grounded in your movement, making sure you're not, like, when you step, you're very sure-footed, so you don't bobble step and stuff like that. So that was very hardcore training that literally changed me for the rest of my life. And now I still train for fights and stuff like that, but I've kind of been doing it so long, it's almost like built into like my DNA at this point. So, truth be told, I don't train as much anymore, but I'm also, I'm like a coiled snake. I'm ready to go at all times.
I know, I love that. I mean, I do notice that with a lot of top competitors. They kind of just keep themselves just below competing stage. They don't have on and off seasons. They just have themselves basically ready. But they also do it for fun. They train. It's not like a chore. They kind of just have a laugh and then just try new skills to develop them, like you did with your friend, just doing the sword play. They get to a point where they just pick things up. It's the joy of doing it. It's, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to pick up. And I think that's the thing. It's like I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you're not enjoying it, you're not going to learn it. If you try to force yourself to these kind of things, it's really difficult. I really love the way that you sort of approach that. But now you've done the body doubles for a lot of people. You've done them for Chris in NCIS. You did John in The Punisher. You've done all these amazing kind of things. But how do you start building up, like, attracting the work? how do you go about getting these roles? Is it just a case of putting together some stunts for yourself, emailing it to people, or is there another way that you can kind of start applying for roles or building up your CV of experience?
Yeah, well, from when I first started, things have changed vastly. I did a lot of things where I started to try to network and go to like places where stunt people would be, whether it be gyms or auditions, or I may meet a stunt person and ask if they knew somebody else and then try to meet them. I offered my time for free. Sometimes people needed help, just maybe moving pads or cleaning up their trailer. Sometimes they need somebody to test a gag. And you're going there and donating your time, and you're getting no money for it. And it's so that you get a little bit of training and get to know your way around the equipment and get to test a gag. And if you don't do a good job, there's no risk involved, right? Of messing up and them not wanting to hire you just because it's a test and there's no stakes at hand. So I did a lot of donating my time, and then people get to know you and know that you're going to show up and that you're a good guy and that you're good at what you do. And then I started to get like very small opportunities of jobs where I was paid. Nowadays, it's very different because especially after COVID, beforehand, you used to be able to go to a set. And although the set was locked, like if they were shooting on location, you would just patiently wait by the side of the set. And when you saw the stunt coordinator, you'd give him a wave. He'd come over. You'd hand him a picture and a resume, shake his hand, and say, nice to meet you. And they would kind of put you into the Rolodex of people. And, you may or may not get a shot, right? But now sets are so locked down, like nobody can show up. The police will escort you away, because anybody who's on set has to be tested and, go through all these protocols. But it's almost easier now because you can kind of like get people to notice you by putting stuff onto Instagram or putting stuff onto Facebook. There's certain pages that some people have for Facebook groups and stuff like that. They're all private, so it's difficult to find. You have to be invited to it. But a lot of these guys that are really talented, like flipping or parkour, or they're really great fighters, they'll shoot their own scene, even with an iPhone, and they'll edit it together and showing off their fight skills. And then they put it up on Instagram, and it may get a lot of hits, and a stunt person may see it, and then they'll send it to somebody else. So the way in nowadays is vastly different. But it does all come down to training and being ready for that first opportunity and networking, just like it was before, although the way you network now is different.
That's a great answer. I mean, I think a lot of industries are going to be completely different now with the whole sort of COVID restrictions, but it also means there's also a lot of new opportunities. There's all these new jobs being created. I think there was like online graduation organizer for people who couldn't attend physical graduations after universities and stuff like that. There's always opportunities that people can take out of bad situations and things like that. It's quite amazing how some people can see, ways of going about it. Almost like you did, when you turned up and got a bottle slashed over your head that first time.
Being creative is invaluable when it comes to trying to pursue your dream, right? Walking through the front door is not always the best thing. I mean, you shouldn't do anything illegal, but thinking outside the box and really trying to find ways to pursue what you want to do in any industry is invaluable. And, I actually get a lot of people that message me on Instagram and stuff like that. And I invite it. I told them like, hey, yeah, like on Corridor Digital, like anybody has questions, hit me up. I'm happy to answer. Well, I had no less than 1,000 messages of people, that would, they would message me and just go, hey man, how do I get into stunts? How do I start? And my question to you is, did you even Google how to get into stunts? Like, is the first guy that you just reach out to some dude you saw on YouTube? I mean, hopefully my resume speaks for itself, but instead of them, it's like if you're really passionate about what you want to do, like, do the research and try to figure it out. Then if you have a question, reach out to the professional, because they're taking time out of their day to answer you, right? And so many people go, I'm sure you're never going to see this, or I'm sure you're not going to respond. Like, it took me weeks, but I respond to every single message that I get. And, it's unbelievable that people just like don't want to take that initiative to try to like dive into what they want to do.
I mean, I've worked quite a few customer service jobs, and it's amazing the number of times people will not even do the basic, I didn't even Google it, or I didn't check it, or I didn't make sure the cable's connected, or, and I suppose that's why there is such a great customer care industry. That's what my mom used to always say was, if you've got the question, 10,000 other people have got it, so Google it. And there's so many blogs now and behind the scenes, there's all these kind of insights into industries and people, like companies helping you get the first break or being an extra on scene or something. You sometimes wonder, is it we're too easy now, that people's interest is just like, oh, I want to go do that. Oh, there's another shiny thing, I'll go do that. Maybe they don't want it as much as maybe when we were younger, where you chased your dreams, you put the effort in. Now, I know this is going to be a really stupid question now, because you're driving from movie set to movie set. We're talking about sword fighting, we're talking about boxing, the Punisher and all that. Is there such a thing as a normal day for a stuntman? Do you have periods where you literally are just getting up, sending off the reel, hitting the gym, coming back? Or does it really depend on, if you've got a project coming up, mid-project, that sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, a normal day for a stuntman is not having a job. It's the when you do have a job, like, you are one of the lucky few. And even though there may be hundreds of people working on that very day, all over the state, it really is a privilege to be able to work. So I think a normal day is that you have nothing to do. If you're fortunate enough to be able to do stunts and that's it, and not have to have another, like, a supplemental job, you just have a day off, right? And you may need to, like, kind of do some networking, but you should use your time wisely. Like, I lift weights every single day. I usually take off Sunday, but I meet my buddies at the gym at 6 a.m. and we work out, and I try to stay ready, try to do, get stuff done around the house. Before it used to be a lot more of like trying to go find places to train and stuff like that. But I have a 1.5-year-old, so I get wrapped up in house duties and taking care of the child. So that stuff's all great. But as far as like the broad scope of like a year in my life, like no days ever the same. It's always something to do with a movie or prepping for a movie or thinking about a movie or a personal project or family life and training.
Now, say you've been successful and you've landed a role in, we'll take the Punisher, for example. How much actual planning of a stunt and the prep and the setup do you get involved with? Do the stunt coordinators and the script writers come to you and say, we want you to do this, that's it kind of thing? Or do they come to you and say, we've got a fight scene, could you plan some some choreograph with the villains to show how it might play and we can see things out? How involved are you with that, the choreography up to that point? I think I've mispronounced that twice now.
Yeah, that's all right. It's all across the board, man. Sometimes a scene may be written very specifically. It may say, like if you took The Dark Knight, for example, it probably in the script said, the Joker comes in, says, I want to do a magic trick, and he stabs a pencil into the table, and the guy comes over, throws a punch, he blocks it, and slams his head into the pencil, and it kills him. So, like, that might be a very specific thing. And it probably was, right? But, like, for Punisher or like Daredevil, for example, Daredevil season 2, where the Punisher was first seen fighting Daredevil on the rooftop, it pretty much said that Frank Castle is sitting there with a sniper rifle, and Daredevil appears, and he turns to see Daredevil at the last second. Daredevil knocks the gun out of his hand and pulls a gun out, shoots Daredevil in the head. Daredevil falls off the side of the cliff, that's what was roughly written, right? So we go in and choreograph what that fight is. So it doesn't necessarily says Daredevil throws a left, then he throws a right, then he ducks it. It's usually like they fight on the rooftop and then they hand it off to the stunt guys. We always will choreograph it ahead of time. Like, we get some rehearsal time, and sometimes we get the actors in and they get to rehearse it as well. On those Marvel films, they were very like cutting edge when it came to, they would ask for a previs, which is where the stunt guys go and film what the fight will look like and what angles it is from, and show them the full scope of the fight ahead of time. The director will then watch that, and he will say, thumbs up, that's approved. Or he'll be like, hey, this is great. I didn't like this part. Can we make that a different move? And we say, sure. And then we'll fix it on the day. Or he may say, it was too long. Can you cut out, 10 seconds of it? So then we'll figure out which part to pull out. We'll be like, great, we're ready for you on the day. So sometimes, does that make sense? Sometimes it's very, sometimes it's very specifically written in the script, and sometimes it just says something very broad, and they fight on the rooftop, and you've got a lot of room for creativity.
Do you have a sort of particular preference when you were a stunt person? Did it depend when you were sort of just starting out, you thought, I'll just do as they say? Or, did you get, as you got more experience, you could see how, by moving to a certain angle, it would show it better? Or, if you throw a kick instead of a punch, it would make the fight better? Do you have a bit of flexibility that you can bring ideas in during these stages? Or does it depend on the coordinators and directors?
A lot of times it's the stunt coordinator will have a conversation ahead of time, probably even a full meeting about what the fight should be with the director. And then the stunt coordinator's job is to interpret what that director says and give him what he wants. So, they definitely want you to do your job. And if you see a place that it can be better, they would like to see it. They may not choose that, but it's definitely your job to try to say, hey, it's weird that he picks the gun up here. Can he pick it up after he falls over the table? And the director might be like, oh yeah, that does make sense. I didn't think of that. Great. But the director may have a very specific beat in his mind, and he'll let you know, no, it's very important for him to pick up the gun here. And, cause it may play later down in the story. So, it's really a team effort. And just because you have a great idea, it doesn't mean that you're right or you're wrong. You just need to be very flexible and realize that it's a team effort, and you got to kind of follow the captain what he wants.
But how do you incorporate the person that you're mimicking? Like say you've got John from Punisher, you've got Chris in NCIS. How do you make sure that, you're thrown out a window, a ball smashed over your head, thrown down stairs, whatever sort of fun stuff you're doing on the day? But how do you make sure you mimic their mannerisms? It can't be just putting on a wig and falling over backwards. How do you make, how much time do you spend with the star to make sure that you've got his style of walking or their style of rolling or something like that so it looks realistic?
Well, when it came to Punisher, I'd never even met John Bernthal until I was up on the rooftop doing the fight. So, I was following the lead of the stunt coordinator, and he kind of came up with, how the Punisher should fight and like his physicality and, the beats that happen in between, the actual fight moves and like his posture and like what he was doing and how aggressive he was. And then I kind of tried to embody what he was, telling me to do, but it was all ultimately my interpretation of it. And, some of it was a guess. And, John happened to, move a lot like I did. And then as time went on, I started to move a lot like John did. But you just have to kind of pay attention. I had researched him and watched him in other movies and stuff like that to kind of understand like how physical he was. As much research as you can do is great. But ultimately you may do a take and then the actor comes in and kind of does it completely different. Well, then when you get the opportunity to get back in there, you try to emulate what they're doing. If they're limping or holding their shoulder or whatever they're doing. I think being a good study is always wise. And if somebody doesn't give you a specific choice, you should certainly make one on your own and allow them to tell you to change it or not change it.
I love that you do your research because it really comes across in your work. I mean, the Punisher scenes were badass. There was such high quality. You would see like the character's expression. You could feel the rage coming through him, by the script. And then you'd portray that through the actual violence, the movements, the stunts. And it was beautifully done. Like it was one of the best things I'd seen in so long. But
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we really fell in love with those characters.
So what goes through your mind, before a stunt? Do you still get nerves now, or do you just find that because you've done it for so long, it's past? Do you have a mantra that you say to yourself, like just before you're about to go on to anchor yourself to get in that zone? Because if you're standing around waiting and then somebody says, we need you to jump out a window, how do you quickly switch that on?
Some of it's experience, just like kind of getting used to needing to be ready at all times. I mean, I certainly got nervous at the beginning. And I think if you're doing something significant, some sort of nerves, if you don't have them at all, there's something wrong with you, But I always get a little nervous and it's not so much that I'm nervous that I'm going to get hurt. I'm nervous that I'm not going to do a good job. That's like my biggest fear is that I mess it up or my timing's off or, it's not about like, oh, that's going to hurt. Right. And I just want to nail it. I want it to be big and epic and everybody love it. That's most of the nerves. And you kind of are just sitting there like, okay, it's go time. But I got to tell you, when I'm standing there getting ready and they start saying roll cameras and all that stuff, you're like, okay. And you're kind of zoning in. And as soon as they say action, it switches off. Like I go into it. It's almost like when, in American football, they hike the ball. Like it just switches off and I'm in game mode and I'm not worried about anything. I'm just trying to execute what it is I'm supposed to do.
That's a great way of looking at it. I've seen people who have said, I don't feel fear or I ignore it. And the really successful ones I've interviewed, like you're saying, is they focus on completing the task or, they think they feel the fear and do it anyway. They say you're always going to feel it. But just do it kind of thing. And I think that's a great way of doing it. If you're still going to fear jumping out a window regardless of how many times you've done it. But if you focus on something else or, you have a set protocol of doing it. But no, I mean, I'm really intrigued in the way that you kind of research and prep and prepare. I mean, how many times are we talking? So say if somebody was to, you were to jump out a window or you were to throw yourself at a car, are you talking 8, 9, 10 times on a stunt, or is it till they get it ready? Is there really a limit or?
Well, there's no specific limit. But ultimately, if you do a good job and they have to shoot it more than once, it's because they messed up. Like they didn't get it in the camera. They didn't light it correctly. They weren't anticipating how fast it was going to go. So as long as you do a good job, if you have to do it again, it's not your fault. It's usually somebody else's fault. And sometimes you need to do it again because they got that shot, but they want to move the camera and get a different angle of the same thing, right? And even if they're shooting 2-3 cameras, they may go, okay, we're going to jump out the window again, and we're going to switch lenses, right? We're going to get something tighter this time. But, hopefully you only have to do something 1 or 2 times. That's usually typical. When you're doing a fight scene, it's not unusual to have to do that fight scene, 10, 20 times because of how often they change camera angles, and you may be running through the majority of the fight before they call cut. So it really is all over the board. I'd say oftentimes when you get lit on fire, or you crash a car, it's one time. Like, they better get it right. They put a lot of cameras on it, and hopefully everything goes good.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
And do you have a particular preference of the type of stunts that you like doing? Because, your show reel had so many different types of things, like driving, shooting, jumping, like setting yourself on fire, falling out of a car. It's such a wide range of things you do. But do you have a preference of the type of stunts you like doing?
Yeah, I actually have just become such a fan of fighting. And, a lot of people say they can fight or try to fight or whatever. It is a very specific art form to be able to fight and have, you are acting the action. Because throwing a punch is one thing, but throwing a punch with your entire body and having the physicality and looking fast or looking weak or looking strong is a complete acting thing more than just throwing the punch. And there's all kinds of these micro beats where you might throw a left-right hook, but you land left-right and then you wind up and then throw the hook and knock them out. So there's this acting beat in between those first 2 punches that you are bringing a physicality and a character to that action. So my favorite thing to do is to fight.
I love it. One thing I particularly loved was the John Wick, the fight scenes, and it seems to be such a long cut, just a one take cut, and it's, when you watch it, you think how amazing they look, but you think the amount of thinking behind that, and the bad guy's got to get flung that way, that guy's got to go through the table, and we've got to move the camera to face that way. How do you find it difficult to do these tightly choreographed fight scenes, or is it just you just keep doing it until it becomes it's 9, we're doing fight scene A, okay, well, that's fine.
Well, I think it really all boils down to the prep. And if they are going to give you the time and the money that is needed to prep it properly. And when it comes down to these real long oneers, like in an Extraction or Atomic Blonde, they, not only are the stunt people extremely dialed in as to what it is that they're going to do, and they've practiced it many, many times in a gym, and then they've practiced it on location, so they know the spacing that they're doing. The best people in the world, they bring the guy who is going to operate the camera. Oftentimes it's steady cam op. They bring him in and he rehearses with you. So when the cameraman rehearses with you, you get absolute gold. The people that usually fail is the stunt team is dialed, and then they get in there and they just try to win. And that's when you get fight scenes that are really choppy, or they don't turn out as good as they could have been, and it's not really the stunt person's fault.
I mean, that is something that really comes across is when you see things like the Spartacus TV series, like the stunt work that they did in the battle scenes, for example, and you can actually see the guy with the camera, like in the featurettes, like working with the actors to see how they were going to strike to make sure they got the particular shot. And, some of the stuff is so beautifully done. You can see the work and the care that so many people put into this. Now, you've moved towards more now into being a stunt coordinator and directing. How do you find that move from doing the actual stunt work itself to planning, preparing, and laying out the stunts itself? How was that transition for you?
Well, early on, I just always wanted to do stunts for my career, for the life. Once I got into it, I knew it was what I wanted to do. And you realize at some point you're going to have to quit falling down, or you're going to be so old that people aren't going to really want to hire you. Even if you can still do it, they're not going to, they don't need an old guy in the scene or whatever. And so if you progress properly, you're going to want to coordinate the stunts, and you're going to want to save your body as much as you can. I personally kind of take to being a leader. I also take to problem solving, which is really what film is. And the dance of action with the camera is problem solving, right? It's how to do something spectacular but safely. I really started to cut my teeth as a stunt coordinator on YouTube videos. I'd become a successful stuntman. I was, doubling Chris O'Donnell, and knew I was going to have a job the next week, and I was less concerned about paying rent, and knew the work was going to keep coming in. So I offered my help for free to some of the YouTube channels and said, I think you got, I looked for the talented guys. I contacted them and said, hey, I love the action that you're putting on these YouTube shorts. I think your camera work and everything's great, but I think your stunts aren't any good. I was like, I would like to bring my team there and do real stunts for you guys so that you can film this stuff and make it even better. And so they took me up on the offer. And that's when I started working with Corridor Digital and Freddie Wong and the Rocket Jump crew. And so they were hiring me, even though I was doing it for free, as a stunt coordinator. However, I had a lot of on-set experience, but zero experience being a stunt coordinator. So I was learning and building credits with them kind of as I went. And, because it is a YouTube video, the stakes weren't really high. It's not like I was going to cost production millions of dollars or something like that. And, there was very little risk of somebody getting hurt. And, that was my time to learn what to do with camera and how to keep people safe. And then that went so well that I built up enough credits that when they did Video Game High School, I had enough credits with them that I was able to stunt coordinate that, which was a small show, but was real, right? And then as I did a few seasons with them, then when the opportunity came up to stunt coordinate a real production, quote unquote, like that had a real large budget behind it, I had enough credits and enough experience to be able to do it. And it even goes for now. Like I've second unit directed some things, but I'm still looking for the next opportunity to second unit direct something else.
And how are you finding that transition? I mean, do you miss the adrenaline and, is life a bit a bit paler now without the stunts? Or are you, enjoying the work of actually creating somebody else's idea and putting it into motion, so to speak?
It's, I really love both of them, but you also, I'm not to the point where I've stopped being a stuntman, like I was, I was just in Ohio, coordinating a film as a stunt coordinator and the boss, and got to see some guys do some action yesterday, and, it was great, right? But, coming up in a couple of days, I'm going to go work on Black Adam, and I'm just a stuntman. So I haven't really stopped being in the mix of the action. Does that make sense?
No, and you've worked with some amazing people, Chris O'Donnell, John Bernal. I'm imagining, have you, with The Rock and Black Adam, what have you found, what have you noticed about these top performers? Is there any sort of similarities in the way they act on the set, the way they hold themselves, their personality or their character? Is there something you've noticed, even in like a lot of stunt guys you've worked with and amazing directors, that, you know, you look at them and say, that's what a top performer is?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I've really been blessed to work with some of these guys that are just absolutely epic. Um, the the one thing I've noticed that actors have in common that are some of the best I've ever seen is that they are incredibly smart and have just unbelievable memories. And it's usually the leads of shows like John Bernthal, The Rock, Ryan Reynolds. A lot of these guys, they come in, they never ever flub a line. They don't have their script with them. They know exactly what they're supposed to say. If you make a change, they change it on the fly. And you'll see the people that they're acting with go, what was my line? And you're just like, holy shit, man. Like, you're working with the best and you're not ready. And these guys come in extremely prepared, and they spend countless hours preparing to be that good. And they literally have the scenes memorized to the T. And that's really what I've noticed in some of those top acting performers. When it comes to doing the action, you know, you kind of get across the board. You know, Bernthal happens to be very good at fighting. He was a boxer in the past. You know, The Rock, he comes in and nails it. Like, we showed him one fight scene. He walked through it twice, had never seen it before, did the moves 2 times, and then was like, all right, cool. And we rolled camera, and I was fighting him, and he nailed it. It was unbelievable. Like, his timing and all the stuff that he had to do. I mean, he's memorized 20 moves in literally like 5 minutes. And he's able to perform them and act and literally nail the timing on all of it. It's unbelievable, man. I mean, they really are something special.
He's definitely somebody I'd love to interview, because not just because he's famous, but it's the quality of his character, and it's also how he's been able to keep adapting himself and taking on new challenges and, you know, rise to them. There's just so much to him about his work ethic and his ability to kind of, you know, go from wrestling to film to, he was talking about politics for a while, you know, and now he's acting like it's nothing, then go back and competing in a wrestling ring whenever he's needed. You know, it's the flexibility of these people. And, you know, he's now got like his business with the tequila. These things are amazing, but what's your opinions now on computer generated work, you know, CGI on these kind of films? Are you finding people are now we need to have 15 flips and we need to have laser guns everywhere? And, you know, are films, do you think, losing the realism, what made them so good, that they're trying to make them too fancy, too out there?
Yeah, definitely. I think they are, but I'm not. People are always like, you're worried about stunts going away? Like, I'm really not. You know how like 3D came in and it was a fad, and I said it from the beginning. I'm like, this is not going to last. Like, this 3D thing's a gimmick. I don't like the way it look. Like, it doesn't feel like a film. You know, it was just too much, and, you know, that's gone by the wayside. I think they're getting much better at CG. Like, I think The Mandalorian actually blends the two things really well. I think there's just something that your eye can tell when something's not real, and you just kind of know it subconsciously. And, you know, they'll get better and better and better, but you're always going to need people there to come up with what kind of happens, even if they never actually get in the thing and film it themselves, because there's just this certain thing that a writer can't come up with because they're probably not an athlete or they don't think the same way. And even the guys running the computers, like, they don't always know how a body would react, and seeing a body actually do it, it's different every time, right? So you're getting something very real. And I think that there's going to be this trend that will be, and it's starting to happen, where things go away from CG and you're using the CG in very minimal, like little tiny brushstroke fashions to just kind of sell the illusion, but everything else will be real. And I really think that that's the best blend of the two.
Is there any sort of particular films that you've watched or franchises that you can't, view anymore because you see the CGI or the poor the poor stunt work or the poor layout that it just drives you crazy when you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. A lot of times the films don't. If I'm seeing really bad work, I just don't keep watching it. Jupiter's Legacy just came out. I watched one episode and was like, I can't even continue this. Like, you can tell they have fake beards on. It was very obviously filmed on green screen, so it looked really hokey. The wire work looked bad. And some of that's the way they film it. It's not necessarily the stunt guy's fault. And, there's just green screen there. As a stunt person, you're hoping that the CG guys do their job and there's enough budget to make it look real, and the editing guy is going to do a good job. And, it just didn't happen. And, they ended up canceling that, because, people watch it and it looks hokey. So I think that there is a place for CG, but it needs to be used more like a sniper rifle and less like a machine gun.
Definitely. I love that, because it's become a point now where people think we'll just paint it on, we'll hide the kind of the faulty layout, or we'll hide the inadequate setup by adding effects and stuff,
And I think if you do that too much, not even if you can fake it to the point that I can't tell, with the computers, I think that you're ultimately sacrificing performance, because when you look at like Star Wars, the prequels, they didn't have enough of a real set there. They just had them standing in front of green screen with like maybe like a robot or something. And they're doing the best they can, but they don't have anything to kind of like make them feel like they're in this actual place. So the performance ultimately suffers, and that's never not going to be true. But like when you have the Mandalorian and it feels like you're inside of a space because of that giant LED wall, I mean, that's gold right there. Like, it's unbelievable for production value. It casts the correct light on the characters, and out of the corner of their eye, they feel like they're there. I think that's invaluable.
Now, stunt work's really quite rough. I mean, you're obviously getting thrown down stairs, you're volunteering to jump out a window, be set on fire. Have you had any sort of incidents, like particularly bad sort of recoveries, or, bad accidents where you've been sort of scared to go back to it? Or, how do you make sure that your mind's back on the set? I think you broke your ankle at one point.
Yeah, that was on Punisher, season 1. That kind of goes back to when you're like how many times do you have to do something. We had this, I had to jump out this window. He was escaping a building, and they were going to do it in 2 shots. One where I jump out of the window and I land in boxes, which is a typical way that boxes collapse and you're safe, right? And then they would film the second part of John Bernthal, like kind of parkour, tapping and rolling up and standing up in camera. So I rehearsed it, I think 2 times. It was good to go. It was like maybe 25 feet, something like that. Not too big of a deal. And then we filmed it twice. And then they said, we got it. Okay, now let's put the glass in, right? Because they wanted to do a couple of takes with no glass in case the glass like didn't break the way they wanted, and they could CG in the glass, right? So they put the fake glass in the window, and it was like, one more, let's just do one more. But they already had it in the can. Like they were happy with everything. So I come and I jump through the glass window, and just a freak accident, my ankle just caught on a box, and a part of it that didn't collapse, right? And it just spun my ankle, and I broke my ankle. Like just freak accident, no one's fault. I performed it correctly. Just bad luck on that day. And, so that was a tough one to come back from, but I never did hesitate. I always knew I'd get better. That's probably the worst injury I've had. Everything else has been bumps and bruises and, stuff like that.
I love how it's just kind of, I just broke my ankle jumping out a window,
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose that's the thing is, your skills are up to that level, that it wasn't something, it wasn't a bad health and safety, it wasn't badly prepared setup or whatever, it was just a freak of nature that something that was there to protect you didn't break in a particular way. But, you've got the confidence in your abilities and you know that you can go back, that it's very unlikely to happen again. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They get scared off with things. They have one bad bump and think, no. And I think it takes a real sort of sense of character to go back into it. I mean, how do you keep yourself going in when you're getting the bruises, the bumps, and keeping yourself mentally ready? Like, what do you do in between takes and offset to kind of keep yourself, like, do you use massage guns? Like, what's your diet like? What do you eat between takes to make sure that when they're ready for you, you can give it your all?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it's fueled by coffee, but, it just kind of keeps you going, keeps you ready, kind of warms you up a little bit. So that's like my go-to if I know I'm doing something. But you're, there's definitely a lot of massages that go on, a little bit of sauna. I've got one of those massage guns. I use that from time to time, but ultimately you're going to be banged up a little bit less if you stay in shape. And I just always am working out, and, every once in a while my elbow might get a little bruise on it, and, you put some arnica on it. I'll have a little bit of, whiskey that night and kind of, knock the dust off. And the next morning you just kind of get up and do it again. If you're on the same show and doing more of the fight scene, sometimes you might be licking your wounds a little bit. You may have to throw an extra pad on, take a couple of Advil and just roll on with it. At this point, it's just kind of like part of the job, and you kind of get used to it, although it never hurts any less. Let's put it that way.
It's amazing how much whiskey can help a situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what kind of training program do you do? You mentioned you sort of work out regularly. Do you have a situation like where you have a certain plan to follow, or does it depend on the role and the size and the shape they want you in? Are there physical benchmarks that you think all men should be able to achieve, but physically?
Not really. I mean, I think that just everybody should be in shape, depending on what type of stunts you're doing. I think it's a good idea. Even if you're not in stunts, everybody should work out and just stay healthy. I try to just eat pretty clean. But I also don't want to, hate my life. So I don't dial it down so much. Like, I want to be able to have a beer or have some French fries or something like that. But it's not every meal. Like, the majority of the time I eat really clean, vegetables and clean carbs and stuff like that. When it comes to working out, sometimes we'll follow a program, me and the buddies, like the Windler program is something that we did. Recently we've been doing kind of splits where the first 2 days of the week, one day we'll kind of lift chest, back, and arms. And then the next day we lift legs. And then the next day we do cardio. And then the second half of the week, we're doing like low reps and heavy with the same type of split. But we'll switch it up a little bit. I'm not trying to emulate somebody like Chris Hemsworth. I'm just trying to be the best I can be. So it's not quite as critical as the Rock stunt double or Bobby Holland,
Because that's something that I always find amazing is like when you're on set, you're working out to keep in shape. Then you're doing they're planning the stunts. Then you're getting into makeup. Then you're going in and filming it and, rehashing it. Then you're kind of waiting for your next scene. How do you find your ability to juggle these kind of conflicting demands and, keeping your sleep pattern okay. And, is there anything you've learned now about man management and all that sort of thing? Like event planning, how you're going to do things, juggling all these conflicting demands, leading people, because, you're now doing the coordinating and directing. What's it taught you about those kind of things?
Well, when you're on a project, you kind of are 100% focused on that one project. But I think it's tough to fit everything into the day. So, I'm at the gym by 6 a.m. on most days. So you got to get up really early. And if we have to be on set at 7, then I'm getting up at 4:30 and getting to the gym by 5. So it's not necessarily that you're picking and choosing what's important. Everything's important. You just have to cram it in. And I think having a driven mindset about I'm going to accomplish these goals no matter what it takes. Even if you have long days, sometimes I'll only get, 4 or 5 hours of sleep. But you kind of just keep that throttle open until you eventually come home and crash at, 9 o'clock at night or whatever. But it's more that I just have this will to succeed than I'm some incredible planner,
I mean, we all get the same 24 hours. I think, I'm trying to think who originally said it, and that really made sense. They said we all get the same 24 hours as The Rock or all these amazing people. And, we always go, I've got so much to do. And you think these guys are getting up at 4 o'clock to get a workout in before they go on set for 15 hours a day. And then they get home at 2 in the morning and they get a couple hours sleep. And then they have to go and do PR and all these sort of things. I mean, are you okay for a few more? I've got heaps of different questions. I mean, these are... Sure. So these ones are sort of more on your opinion on things. So I've got heaps of these sort of little prompts. Would you rather be an actor? Would you rather your name was up there? Does it bug you that you don't always get the credit for the amazing work you do?
No, people always, I get that a lot. They're like, did you want to act, but then you went into stunts? Honestly, I never wanted to act. I've taken acting class just so I could be kind of better at what I do. And I didn't take it for a super long time. Just tried to educate myself. But, no, I just want to be successful at stunts. I want to get into directing. I've been directing my own short films. Because I just have a passion for film. Honestly, it has nothing to do with fame. I could care less about fame. And if somehow I got famous for something in the future, you wouldn't see me on the red carpet at night with my sunglasses on, I'd still be the same guy that I am today. I just am the guy that gets to kind of make his own movie, which would be awesome. So yeah, fame's never been a driving force. And I find oftentimes if it is, those people fail.
I love that. That's because I see all these people jumping onto OnlyFans and, they're going for the quick buck just now, whereas I'd rather put the work in. I mean, when I look at the number of things that would be worse off if you had gone into acting, some of your work makes some of the shows as good as they are, I'm so glad you did go into it. But does life ever seem less exciting without the sort of, the adrenaline of jumping out a window or setting yourself on fire? How difficult it is to switch off once you've been working on a set for a while?
It's never been, the whole stunt thing has never been about being an adrenaline junkie or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's more that I was always kind of very athletic and liked being physical. And, I played sports a lot, and that I also have this crazy love for film and storytelling and kind of playing pretend, if you will. And, I'm terrible at sitting behind a desk. So
that makes sense. I mean, I've been behind a desk plenty of times, and it's certainly not fun.
Yeah, I mean, the adrenaline's fine and everything, like, that's cool. I just get more, it's more like the long-term goal of being successful and being able to do something that I truly like doing, because I've done stuff that I hate, and it's a miserable life.
And has there been like a particular stunt you've done that's been your favourite, or something that, you know, you're most proud of, maybe is a better way of saying it? Is there something that you just immediately go, watch this?
Yeah, I mean, the one, you know, there's a couple that come to mind. And you know, like the moment in Daredevil season 2 where I'm fighting on the rooftop, although that's not like some big epic stunt. It was just like, wow, what an experience. You know, like we're on this rooftop where nobody else gets to go on in the middle of New York City, and I'm like looking out my 2 eyes and I'm staring at Daredevil. Like crazy, right? Like it was just crazy. So that was very memorable. There is a pipe ramp where I flip a car through there that is in Video Game High School season 3. It's on my reel. It was gigantic, and I went flying through there. I'm pretty proud of the way that turned out, although kind of any idiot can drive the car and hit a pipe ramp, although it takes someone special to kind of like keep a cool head and be able to hit it the right way. And you know, I'm always most proud of typically the thing that I've done most recently. I got to do a pretty good big gag in Black Adam, which you'll see at some point. So like most recently that pops into my head as something I thought was pretty awesome.
That car flip was amazing. I think there was footage of your GoPro, and you were saying it just like you were whizzing round and round. And when you see it and you think, okay, it's going to stop. Oh, no, another rotate. No, you know, and it just kept rotating, and you're like, and I like the way that you probably did that a couple of times, and you know, it was just like, okay, reset, let's go again. It's amazing when you see that, and I'm really jealous now thinking, but I would love to be able to go on a set and fight the characters of films that I loved as a kid, or, you know, to jump into these sorts of things. But has there been something that you've particularly hated doing, you know, because of the outfit, or you know, maybe you had to mimic a certain style that it didn't suit, or was there a scene that you particularly hated doing that you could talk about, maybe? Man, I know you maybe don't want to offend the director, or...
Oh no, yeah, they probably think I'm a peon anyway. You know, there's been a number of outfits that have been pretty bad, because a lot of times the wardrobe department, they build it so it looks cool, but not so it doesn't dig into your neck or whatever. So I mean, there's so many of those, like it's hard to count. But I think the thing I hate the most is sitting around waiting for something to happen, and it literally happens every single day. And it's the thing that drives me nuts about this job, but the job is a privilege to be able to do. So you kind of, but there is some downtime. They'll literally bring, and you get ready and you have like nothing else to do, and you're just willing to just sit there and stare at the wall, right? I think that's the worst part about this is the waiting for some. And I'm trying to think if there's the other times that have been pretty difficult is when it's cold. There's a lot of times where you're outside and it might rain, or you're doubling the lead, so you can't put on very many layers, and you're just reading. And the middle was very cold. Yeah, but I was in the middle of New York at night. That more than the outfit being difficult, a lot of times it's the conditions that you're in.
And, you've travelled to some amazing places, you've worked with some amazing directors. Is there any sort of particular favourite locations to film in? And who's been your favourite directors to work with?
I think, it was pretty cool. I did, Those Who Wish Me Dead. It just came out recently, and, it was, Sheridan was the guy who, Taylor Sheridan was the guy who directed it. He was very, very cool. He was an actor that turned into a director. It's very interesting to watch him work. I'm working with a director now that I can't talk about, but he's very, very interesting, and I really love working with him and watching what it is that he does. And there's been some second unit directors that have been very inspirational to work for. Damon Caro, he does a lot of Zack Snyder's stuff, and one of those was 300 Rise of an Empire. He second unit directed that, and it was super cool watching his work. The Russo brothers did Avengers. That was, pretty amazing. There's been a number of them.
And is there any franchise, it could be years old, it could be modern, that you particularly would have liked to have worked on?
Oh man. Of course, I'd love to work on Star Wars, not necessarily the new ones that have come out, but that
good choice.
Been amazing. Yeah. I mean, my goodness, some of those were pretty bad, but the old school ones would have been pretty spectacular. I think a lot of the guys have very fond memories of working on the Pirates movies, the Pirates of the Caribbean. I think that would have been a pretty cool experience that I wasn't in stunts when that was happening. Let's see. I think it would have, if I could probably pick anything, it was so cutting edge at the time, it'd have been The Matrix, man. That would have been rad, right?
That was actually going to be my next suggestion, is because that seemed to be, the fight scenes especially would have been right down your alley.
Yeah, and also they were just literally the tip of the spear when it came to, innovation. How cool.
And how would you change the industry for the better? If you could change the American stunt industry, how would you go about it? Would you kind of modernize it the way the UK scene is set up?
I think I would. I think that would be, I think having some sort of certification process, and a little more clear of a path of a way to get in and do stunts and be good at them. I think that would be fantastic for the industry. There's a lot of people that do great work and it's ticked along just fine so far. But man, that would be very, very interesting to see that happen. I think that would be a good idea. And, some of it's a stigma where people think maybe some of the higher ups kind of think stunt guys just get thrown through walls and that they're dumb. And it would be just kind of getting through the producer and the director's head, how much we actually understand and how good we actually are at what we're supposed to do, and trusting us more. And the director not feeling like his feelings are hurt because we came up with something better than him, because we're all working towards one goal. And, the directors that embrace that, they get the best stuff.
I mean, yeah, I would have thought you'd been perfect for The Matrix. I've just got a couple more questions. What would you say to a child of yours who wanted to get in stunt work? Would you be for it or would you be against it?
Oh, no. I'd be absolutely not. People are always like, "Oh, is he going to do when's he going to do his first stunt?" Because I have a son, and I'm like, "Yeah, never, man, never." I would encourage him to be smart. If ultimately he ends up wanting to do that, that's fine. But I'm encouraging him to be smart. If he does want to get into film, I think the best thing would be to, become a director, because my goodness, you get to craft the stories and do what it is that you want to do, as opposed to doing stuff that other people want to happen.
I mean, I can imagine that kind of thing, that sharing the love of stories, but then to be able to show a story and then go, there I am, to be into these sort of mystical, amazing franchises like the Pirates of the Caribbean, the Matrix, and being able to turn around and say, and there's your dad there, and that's me getting kicked out a window, or that's me, it's such an amazing thing to be able to share, especially with like your love of the movies and love of stories, which is likely to be passed on to him, and what a great gift to share. And what advice can you give advice to anybody wanting to get into the movies, into stunt industries? Is it kind of closed off now with needing to have a certain level of qualifications, do you think, or can people still go down the networking path like you mentioned?
They definitely can still go down that networking path. I think that you just need to train as much as you can. You should do your own research, make your own short films, because not only are you creating content to be able to promote yourself, you're also practicing your craft, because you'll learn a lot by messing up. And I gotta tell you, no matter, this goes for tech industry, if you wanted to create a car or something like that, like you're always going to have people that say, "Oh man, you should have got in like 5 years ago. Like now's like the worst time to do it," right? And it's really hard to get into that. Well, they were saying that 16 years ago when I got in. I think if you want to do it, you should just keep working towards that goal, and you may have to do other things while you're pursuing that goal, but just never ever quit. It's like trying to chop down a tree. Like, you can't chop down a tree in one swing. It takes many, many, many hits, and eventually that tree's going to fall.
Perfect. I mean, would you want that to be what people took from this interview, was to chase your goals, to just keep trying and never giving up on it? I mean, what would you say to people as a sort of like a take-home message? If they had to remember one sort of key area from this, what would you think it would be?
Yeah, I think it's definitely that. It's just if you are not happy with what it is that you are doing in your life, then figure out you don't need to make a drastic change and throw the cash register at the wall. Just start working towards what it is that you want to do. And if you don't know what it is that you want to do, just take time and think about that. What is it that truly makes you happy? Like, if you want to go be a mountaineer, you can find a way to make money being a mountaineer. There's nothing that says that you can't. And just keep pursuing your dreams, and you will be much happier for it.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. You've done such amazing work. You've turned shows and movies into blockbusters, and you've entertained millions of people. I can't give you a better compliment than that. You do amazing work, and all these TV shows where you go in and just, give a behind the scenes, you're enticing a new generation of people to come and watch films and that, and it's amazing to see your career blossom and go into stunt coordination, and seeing you kind of going into directing as well. But how can people keep in touch with you? Say if people want to find out more about you, I know you can't talk about what's coming up, but sort of to see your work, how can we keep in touch with you and what you're doing?
Yeah, the best way is on Instagram. It's just at Eric Linden. And I have, if you've got a very specific question, you can message me on there and I'll do my best to answer it. If you just want like kind of broad sense of what to do to get into stunts, my website, ericlinden.com, has a link on it that says how to get into stunts. And I literally wrote an entire article, explaining how I got started and what you need to do to get started. So that's a good place to start as well.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.